Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Hopefully you're having a wonderful day. Today we are here with another episode of the PWCC Weekly Review, where we go through the top 100 soccer items auctioned off this week. As always, if you enjoy the channel, if you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like. I'd appreciate it greatly. But with that said, let's get into it. So we have successfully managed our way on over to the PWCC site. We'll start from the bottom, typically around $100. This week seems to match that trend. Generally speaking, I don't spend as much time on modern, so we'll probably go pretty quick through this row. We have a Xavi Modric there with the duel from 2014, a Camavinga blue, and then we have this Sergio Ramos red refractor. Pretty cool, out of 10 from the first finest set. Continuing upward, some odd and ends. We have a Messi and a Ronaldo there. We also have a 1959 Lidholm coming in at a PSA 6. First of a couple Belgians we'll see in this auction. This is a Romelu Lukaku PSA 9 Panini sticker going for 100. I actually saw Soccer Cards HQ talk about during the week. I think he just tweeted out something about how he thought that Lukaku was just under-talked about in the hobby, and how if he was, in a different scenario, people would be all over him. And I looked at his stats, and it's actually pretty impressive, especially for his age. He's not as old as you would think. He's just sort of been around a while. I mean, 2010 for a rookie isn't anything crazy. And for his stats, it's pretty impressive. At the same time, you don't really have any sort of history or love in the hobby, so I get that. But on the other hand, I thought it was something cool to think about. We have a Kaká 2003 Wizards of the Coast PSA 9 for 103. Above that, I thought that this PSA 9 Puyol was a decent sale. 103 there for a PSA 9. These are really hard to get centered, so a PSA 9 is a pretty good grade, and thought that 103 wasn't anything terrible. Defenders don't really get that much love, so 103 for a PSA 9 of a Monday Chromo card, not bad. We then have a Dixie Dean and also a Lewandowski Orange from 2018. I thought that this was a fairly respectable price for a PSA 9 going for 112. We'll see a Neuer from 2017 that goes pretty near the same price, and I don't know how other people see it, but I'd put Neuer above Lewandowski in terms of all-time rankings, but also Neuer's a goalkeeper and Lewandowski's a striker, so naturally that's going to, sort of sway demand. Above that, cool Dennis Bergkamp in this row, PSA 4 for 112. Doesn't seem like a crazy price to pay for a unstuck sticker of Arsenal legend there. 91-92 George Weah, fun one to look at. Obviously Zinedine Zidane rookie year, so having another great player from the year wouldn't be too bad if you're collecting it. We have a 62 Garrincha you don't see all too often, going for 117. And a 2022 Pulisic auto. For above that, nothing too crazy. We do have a Dolar there going for 120, along with a PSA 10 Mia Hamm, and then a sticker auto of Paolo Maldini there. So that's really it for that row. Nothing much to add. Probably, honestly, same for this row. Although, actually, we did look this one up, the Ronaldo 95-96. I actually like the second-year Ronaldos almost more in terms of picture. There's this one, and there's another sort of, I think it's like a junior release or something along those lines, but yeah, really cool photo, so figured we'd look that one up. You also don't see it too often. In the search results, basically, the last 3 sales have all been PSA 4s, which is, useful for this thought demonstration that we're going through. One before this did 133, so basically exact same price, and one before that did 120 last year. So I guess up a little, but basically where you'd expect it to be. And yeah, even back to May of 2023 is 132. And then, back here in 2022, a 6 and a 2 ran together for 180, which, to be fair, that was during sort of the golden, huge blowout soccer sale where it was World Cup time to sell all your cards. And from what it looks like, that was actually the bottom of a lot of cards. So, interesting how that plays out, but just something to think about. Going back to the auction, in this row, we have a Euroflash Totti PSA 7 going for 130, an 81 Maradona and a PSA 7, along with a 62 Garrincha from the same set we just saw the one prior. In this row, I have no clue as far as this far right one goes, so I'll just, gloss over it and claim ignorance. 1987 Didier Deschamps going for 138 and a PSA 8. It says rookie in the listing. If memory serves me correct, I'm pretty sure his rookie is like a 4-panel one. I could be wrong, but I think that's correct. But if you are a player collector, I would almost prefer the first sort of solo shot rather than having 4 players on a card, because to me that just isn't as fun. I think that there's definitely some interest in having both. Nonetheless, fair price, but it's also pop 1 of 1, just 1 higher, so not something you're coming across every day. Certainly still more out there. They're not getting graded in high quantity, but at the same time, there's probably more than 1 or 2 collectors, as proven by the price. We have a 62 Sarah Vaughan here of Pele going for 138, a PSA 2. Always sort of like those ones with the nice color, and you also have Brazil there in the background. In this row, nothing really I have too much to say about. KDB sticker auto for 144, I guess, but other than that, Nothing too crazy. I mean, a Vinny red press proof going for 144. I know it is a 10, but that still feels like a decent price. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the 2018 Optics set, less so than the modern times, but there's plenty of numbers in this set, so a red press proof isn't anything too crazy. In this row, we have a PSA 8 of the Este Messi from 2005. We saw this one recently go for like 500. I don't know if it was the same shirt, but I knew when I saw a 500 sale that it seemed weird. So to basically see the same exact card or maybe a different cert go the next week for much less would sort of bring us to the same conclusion that I sort of initially strummed up. Nonetheless, that seems more reasonable and more in line with recent comps, so that's fair. 144 for that. 150 for this BGS 9 Neuer. The first of many cards that are numbered from a couple sets that have been pumped and seemingly are selling now for 150 there, but it seems like a fair price. I sold a PSA 9 Neuer on eBay for nearly the same not too long ago, so that seems within the realm. It seems like no one really collects Neuer to a great degree. There are people out there, believe me, but at the same time, I don't think people care too much about goalies, which isn't anything revolutionary, but I think this sale sort of, proves that point. Keeping on from there, some odd-end Peles. We have a 72-73 Panini Football, along with a 69 Victoria and a 58 Stella. It says 58 in the listing, although I guess on the SGC slab it says 1958 to 67, so they're really giving themselves some leeway with that one. I'm not quite sure what the explanation here is. I would have thought early 60s just looking at it. Maybe it's dated in a more recent slab. I'm not too sure, to be honest. I'm not too deep into the weeds in 60s Pele, but that's interesting nonetheless. I think labeling it a 1958 is probably not the best move. Maybe 58 through 67 would have been better, but nonetheless, we keep it moving. We have a 58 Fontaine there and an SGC4 going for 150. Row above that, we have a Herbert Chapman PSA 9 going for 150. Couple 30s items next to each other. A Miazza over here from a team photo of 35 going for 150 as well. And this is something I haven't seen before in one of these auctions. Pop 1 of 0, 2 higher, so interesting to see that always. But Kellogg's 1990 Panini FIFA World Cup. So presumably this is sort of the same as the Shreddies David Beckham sticker, where it was released with some cereal. I would assume that this is basically the same, and so to have a sticker released in a cereal box that then doesn't go stock probably isn't the easiest thing to do. So that goes for 156, even in low grade, which is pretty cool. Right above it, comparatively, we have what I just assumed to believe to be a Brazilian or South American release of the Panini World Cup here, with a Panini Abril Campeonato Mundial de Futebol. PSA 8 going for 156 there, so 4 grades apart for the scarcity difference is pretty interesting to note. We have a Nanina Bonaparte going for 156, along with a Gio Smith general interest here going for 156 also. Then you got your mixed bag of goats here between a Billy Meredith from 1908, an Erling Haaland sticker, a Cristiano Ronaldo base SP Authentic. Moving on up, we have a Renaissance Kylian Mbappe. I've always sort of mentally debated, what are the sort of case hit type of cards that people are really going to care about, and I've recently come to the conclusion that I don't care because all of them are still priced pretty well, and I don't think even the general soccer community has come to a conclusion or even tried to. So maybe eventually that happens, but I'm just out on it, to be honest. What I will say, though, is I really do like the stained glass or Renaissance type of cards where you just have so many colors and they all sort of play their own unique role in the card. I like those a lot more than, say, a Kaboom where it's just, sort of a comic book style aspect going on. I really like the colors. So for me, I personally enjoy the Renaissance and the stained glass type of stuff, but at the same time, nothing I'm going to be chasing all too heavily. Got a John Charles SGC 6 there in between, and then we have an Iker Casillas PSA 10 186 for the gold auto. I do find that a bit interesting. I mean, a Casillas at Porto going for more than a Neuer that's lower numbered. Now, I get it. This is PSA 10. This is gold, yada, yada. At the same time, I think most people would probably take the Neuer, but at the same time, collecting isn't done by the majority. It's done by the people that really care enough to buy the cards. So, it plays out that way. Nonetheless, we keep it moving. 2004 PSA 6 goes for 200. Seems like a fair price to me. I've seen PSA 8s on eBay do around about 500, so that seems pretty in line. We have a 68 Panini Calciatore Pele PSA 6, along with a Merlin's PSA 8 Steven Gerrard. Don't see a lot of these, so I decided to look it up. And yeah, compared to the last sale, it doesn't look good. But if you compare it to the sale before that, actually looks pretty fine. So basically, PSA 9 auctioned last summer for $384. This PSA 8 goes for $200, which to me, typically I take off half the price from a 9 to an 8, so that seems pretty in line. Also, fixed prices on eBay typically are going to do higher, so, seeing a PSA 6 do a high price isn't anything really all too shocking. In this row, we have a CSG Roberto Baggio going for $204, along with a Robert Charlton, or Bobby Charlton, going for $210 there in a PSA 4. Felt like a decent price. It also has really good colors, to be fair. It's also very OC, so, that all plays a part. That's why it's a 4, but 210 doesn't seem all too shabby. We also have a 1947 Bonaparte from the Vav set there, and a 7.5, which is a pretty stunning grade, going for $216. A couple Pelés mixed with some Brazilian legends. So here you have a Pelé and Grincha in a 1 going for $222. This is probably one of the lowest Pelé 58 sales I've seen of like a non-in-action shot in quite a while. At the same time, it's quite poor looking, so I get it. Also, the Gazette doesn't really have a lot going for it in terms of a claim to be a great Pelé card, so I get that as well. Sort of makes sense. Next, we have a Bremer Fakring here of Pelé and Vava, which I did look up because you don't see these all too often, and it was just sort of interesting what it had done price-wise. So basically, compared to the last one was an SGC 5 that did $576. So, I mean, based on the last sale alone, which apparently isn't going to load, or it's going to take a second. But yeah, basically you have the two of them in goal celebrating while a keeper seems to wander on back to net. All in all, though, I mean, compared to an SGC 5, that doesn't seem like a bad price. If we go really far back, I mean, the first one to sell in these listings that we can find is a 2021 card and a BVG2 that did almost $1,400. So sure, compared to that, it's down quite a bit. Above that, nothing too crazy in this row. I was moderately impressed that a team photo still goes for $300. Now, of course, a PSA 9 is a really good grade, so I get that also. Other than that, really nothing too much to talk about in that row, I don't think. Heading to the row above that, a couple mix and match Erling Haaland. So there we have an auto and a base, along with a Luis Suarez treble gold going for $336. As always, we'll see if they get paid. Above that, we have a row of nothing but Pelé, although I guess technically a team photo, there are definitely other people than Pelé, but Pelé's the star, that's what you're here for, and that's why we're in this row. So 65 Calciatore of both PSA 5 and CSG 6, so it's nice to be able to see that basically a 1 grade difference, but the same price point, so that sort of tells you where CSG lines up in terms of the soccer market. I will say notably, the color looks a little worse in the CSG slab, or the CGC slab. I still get them mixed up because it's the same company, they just changed their name, or the acronym at least. But I will say the colors on the 5 look much better than the 6, so, just something of note to throw in there. Row above that, Dixie D 1927, DC Thompson in a 3, going for $372 there. We have a Wayne Rooney smack dab in between them at $400, along with a KDB PSA 9 that we were sort of referencing earlier with the Lukaku, going for 4 times the price here, $400. Took a look at past sales to see sort of where we're at, and the last fixed price sale went for a little less, just $2 less, so, relatively the same. But to think that, basically there hasn't been an auction PSA 9 in almost a year, 8-9 months, that's pretty crazy, and so, rightfully it's near the same price, which makes sense to me. Keep in mind also these prices are sort of coming on the tail end of a treble win, so there might have been a little hype baked in. Nonetheless, it goes for nearly the same at this point. Above that, we have a 66-67 CSG 6 Pelé from the Campione dello Sport, going for nearly $400. Next to it, we have a Gerd Muller PSA 5. Always taking a look at the backs of the Mullers and Beckenbauers that appear within these auctions, because I think it's notable. Again, I'll say it every time. Well, first thing I say every time is, why is this in a surfboard slab other than PSA just being egregiously lazy and almost disrespectful to the consumer? There's no need for this to be in a surfboard. Yeah, here it is. Don't get that at all. Absolutely crazy. Nonetheless, usually what I look for to see if it's removed or not is typically it's going to have some roughed up corners just from being out for 60 years or so. This one doesn't seem to have any. And then when you look at the back, I mean, at first inspection, it seems pretty good. Almost all the text seems to be there. But at the same time, it might not be easy for you to see, but at least for me, there seems to be sort of some discoloring going on. And then if you really zoom in, some of the text seems a little crackly, like down here. You also have this G that's missing a little bit. I don't know what these little specks are. That seems to be paper loss. Nonetheless, I mean, to me, that sort of looks removed. Looks like a good removal. But at the same time, I really don't understand PSA's grading at this point. It seems inconsistent, but also with the better removals that are coming out, I'm totally at a loss, so I don't know. Nonetheless, 400 seems right, and sort of within the range of what those have been going for, so makes sense. At the same time, still moderately disappointed in PSA, but is what it is. Next, we have a Green Noir going for 420 there in an SGC 9.5. I don't know. It's difficult for me to talk about treble and Topps Chrome. Because, well, one, people in the comments last week were on me a little bit saying, you do nothing but talk down about these sets. You hate Modern. You don't even like Modern. Why do you do this? I love Modern. I don't, buy it through and through. I actually, at this point, I probably don't focus much on Modern, but I do buy cards in Modern. When I look at my best cards in my collection, there are Modern cards in there. There are numbered cards in there. I do actively buy Modern sets and try to, go for certain parallels I like and this and that. But what I'm not going to do is do what everyone else is doing. That's what I've learned in cards. That's what I've learned a lot in life. And, particularly when it comes to chasing Modern parallels, I'm just not going to chase what everyone else is chasing. And so plainly, to me, this is not something I'm interested in. I understand why people are. Personally, I think it's because it got pumped by certain influencers and not organically, because there's tons of other great Noir cards out there that are really rare, that look really cool, and people don't care. But this one, people are huge on. And why is that? But yeah, maybe now that these cards are selling in this auction, maybe we don't have to see the set pumped as much, so who knows. Above that, couple Messis along with a Vinny. So we have a Messi PSA 9 from 2006 World Cup, and then we have a PSA 8 from the 2004 Mega Cracks, along with a 2022 Landmark. So I guess in this row, I find it interesting that the PSA 9's held up really well from the first World Cup. It's come down quite a lot, to be fair, but 500 for a World Cup card still is pretty good. And going near the same as the PSA 8 Mega Cracks, it's not too bad, I would say. Above that, multi-language Pele PSA 6 goes for 500. Generally speaking, I would prefer, and this is something that might become a thing more and more, I don't know, but at least to me, I would prefer PSA graded stickers that have earlier certs, probably before like 70, 80 million for the 1970 set at least. And so to me, a 63 million cert and prior, I'd feel pretty good about that going for 500. Seems like a fun buy there. We have a Buffon selling for 504, so nice little color match there. A lot of PSG Buffon collectors surely. Jude Bellingham 2022 Orange Prism goes for 600 in a PSA 10, so first World Cup Prism for Jude, gonna be a big deal. That goes for 600, which is a mighty fine price. I will say also though, PSA 10's not easy to come by in this World Cup set, since just the ability to grade them is absolutely horrid. The quality control was quite poor, so PSA 10 not easy. Keeping that theme going. PSA 10 Breakaway not going to be easy for Messi. That goes for 600. Pop 1 of 14. I don't know if I should be surprised, but I guess I am a little surprised that a card like this can make it into what is almost, I'm not going to spoil it, but this is like top 10, top 20 in this auction, and it's just a breakaway parallel. Obviously, it's Messi's World Cup winning year. I get all that. People like the Prism. And while it may seem like I talk down on this type of stuff, to also see those prices getting paid is somewhat encouraging, I would say, at the same time, because if new cards are coming out and people just aren't buying them, that's no good either. So you want a nice mix, and we certainly have that, which is good, I think. Here we have a 53-54 Ruiz Romero. It's a Stefano that went for 630. I'm just going to say I don't know what this price is about. I'm not quite sure. When we look back at past sales, basically, eventually we're going to find that there are a few sales. The one before this was a PSA 7 that we saw in the PWCC Weekly. This did 1,400. So a PSA 1 doing half the price of a 7. That alone should sort of ring some bells there in your mind. But if we look back at past sales before that, we have a 1.5 that went for 256. And this one, I remember the guy on eBay just brutally relisting it over and over and over. I'm assuming he shilled it. But yeah, 204 he shilled, or it got shilled. I'm not going to say he, I don't know. But 204, 202, 157, and then finally, apparently at 256, he either stopped trying to sell it or someone bought it. I don't know. Nonetheless, a PSA 1 now going for 630 seems crazy, but at the same time, it's a pop 1 of 1, just 3 graded higher. Maybe that sort of lures someone in. It's not easy, and it is a really nice looking Di Stefano, so I sort of get it, I will say, but at the same time, comp-wise, I'm also sort of blown away. So Yeah, I was thinking the back looked clean. I mean, there's definitely signs of removal, so it's, nothing special. Next to Upper Deck, PSA 9 going for 700 from Ronaldo. That seems like a pretty decent price. I'm not going to go look at the chart because I'm sure the chart goes way up and then way down, and now we're sort of chilling. But, I mean, to me, a base Ronaldo from his second year going for 700 feels like a pretty good price. At the same time, this is first year Manchester United, which I do think carries some sort of premium, which is more than fair, I think. And yeah, we swiftly move up to the top 12. Gonna be top 9 pretty quickly. In this row, from what I remember, it looks like at least 2 relistings. I'm pretty sure we saw this Vinny auto out of 10 gold go prior for probably nearly the same price. And same thing with the Foden. I remember them I don't think being over 1,000, but being close to pushing that. So again, it seems like they do. But again, I don't like talking about retreads almost at all. Like I want to just actively scroll by them, and I think we'll do just that. Up here, again, I think we see another one. I'm pretty sure this Ronaldo's a retread. It's just one of my biggest gripes, I feel like, with the serial numbered cards that doesn't get talked about. No one talks about it right now. And I don't know why that is, but people talk about them being great because they don't sell a lot. But at the same time, when you don't sell a lot, there's no consistency in comps. There's no confidence for the seller to know what they're going to get, and there's no confidence in the buyer to know what they should pay. And so I feel like oftentimes that's what leads to a lot of the shilling, is there's uncertainty on both sides. And so people do things they probably shouldn't. And also, it's easier to manipulate this stuff because if you sell it really high or fake sell it because you shilled it really high, there's probably not going to be another one coming out of the woodwork in a week to lower your comp back down, so you can sort of prop them up, which is a big reason. I understand why they're desirable, but I don't play in the waters, and I don't quite enjoy it. Also, just having to sit and look at the same ones over and over frustrates me quite a bit. So, nonetheless, this KDB seemed really high. Again, I guess with this type of stuff, you have to wonder if it gets paid. Most of the other sales, I don't think that there's a crazy concern about. This one I thought was just pretty high, to say the least. And out of 50 gold, it is a 9.5, but it's, SGC 9.5, so it's not anything all too crazily respected in the hobby. Feels like a mega strong price to me, but, pop one of 2, none higher, so you could certainly convince yourself if you wanted. And again, just one after another, the out of 10 golds are crazy. The out of 10s are really bad. I've seen a lot of the gold out of 10s, a lot of the red out of 10s, and people sort of hype them up. I think that's the most shilled segment I've seen so far in soccer, which is pretty impressive because, there's a lot of little nooks and crannies that get shilled, but the out of 10s are just crazy. We already had to run one guy out of the hobby, and I wouldn't doubt that there will be many more along the way that sort of get caught up in all this. But nonetheless, that goes for 1,500. I mentioned before when I saw this card, I think it's kind of a cool card. Return to Manchester United, sticker auto, of course, but that's most autos, to be fair. And then some boring base cards to end off the auction. So actually, we got a numbered card at the top, so just hold your horses if you're a numbered guy. 2002, 2003 PSA 6 Ronaldo goes for 2,400. I looked this up. Not something you see a lot of comps on, if any, really. I don't know what quite is going on here. Looking at the last 6 months, basically exactly where it was. Looking at the last year, down a little, and then if we go to 2 years, it'll be down, a little bit more, given sort of the drop that was still going on in 2022, along with the World Cup loss and the Messi win. But really, since the Messi win, I guess somewhere in here, you could probably say like 3,000, maybe a little bit higher. To now, it's 2,400. It's not really that much of a loss, maybe 20%, maybe a little higher, but 20% for theoretically not being the GOAT anymore and everyone hates him doesn't seem too bad at all, at least for the time being. A lot of people, I think, are going to look at the PSA 10 graph, and deservedly so. There was a time back here where you can see a PSA 10 went for 310,000, and now one recently went for 63,000. And so that's quite a big dip. But something I think is very important is, well, one, back there at the time, during 2021, Ronaldo is almost seen as better than Messi within the hobby, and this also has double the pop of the Messi 71 bis. The Messi 71 bis has 19, this has 38, and I think that's a big reason why you see the fallback, along with, of course, Messi winning a World Cup, Ronaldo not, yada yada. It's not like Ronaldo didn't win a Euro with a team that historically is worse. Portugal's never won a World Cup. Argentina's won 3, so just throwing it out there. A lot of people think I'm a Ronaldo guy. If you followed me long enough, you would know at one point I was a Messi guy. I just like soccer and I like the greats, and if people are really downing one guy at one point in time, I have a tendency then to lean towards that guy. And I think people are really dogging Ronaldo right now, but I think at the end of the day, when people look back and see the top scorer of all time, they might be impressed just a little. I don't know. Nonetheless, PSA 6 goes for a respectable price, but down a little bit from the last sale. TTT Beckenbauer here goes for $25.20 and a PSA 6. This was actually a pretty disappointing sale, at least compared to the last comp. Not last comp, but last closest comp was a PSA 7 that went just a few weeks ago for $9.6 thousand. So almost 4 times the price for one grade higher. Now, if we really want to dig into it, which you probably should if you're spending this type of money, I mean, look at this card. It looks a little sort of diamondy, at least like slanted, but at the same time, when you look at the corners, all these corners look pretty good. It looks pretty centered. When you look at this recent PSA 6, the bottom corners look a little white, and it's also pretty OC. You can sort of see the other cards peeking in, so I get why that probably does a little bit lower, but when you go back and look at comps, it's actually not that bad. PSA 4 did $930 in December, so a 6 doing $2,500 seems within the range. And then into the top 3, looking at this BGS 8 Messi 71 bits, this went for $38.40. I look back at past sales, and basically every other sale was exactly the same price or plus or minus a couple hundred, so this is right where you'd expect it to be. Pretty recent graded as well, which is interesting of note. Next to it, we have a Pele Quigol from 1958-59, or believed to be 59-60, somewhere in that range. Probably not a rookie, but is still labeled as a rookie. This goes for $4,200, and this graph, well, not graph, but the sales history is going to be one that is quite shocking. So I'll be comparing it to PSA 3 since it was a 2.5 with an eye appeal, and I think that's fair. The last PSA 3 did $37.20 with an eye appeal, so comparatively to that, this actually did pretty good. Now this 3 also has an eye appeal sticker, but at the same time, there's an entire big part of another card peeking in on the side, so I don't know if they, accounted for that. Nonetheless, prior sales, $3,700, $38, and then you get to $7,000, $12,000, and usually I don't like going back this far, but this really explains sort of what has happened to the Quigol. I mean, the Quigol at its peak was $25,000, which is huge for soccer. You don't definitely see that a lot at this point nowadays, but yeah, back in the day, $25,000 for a PSA 3, and now you have a pretty good PSA 2.5 going for $4,200. So to me, it seemed like a crazy deal. So it looks like a huge loss, and it definitely is. I think a lot of that sort of bakes in that this is no longer seen as a rookie, despite the PSA labeling. I think people sort of understand that now, and that's why we are where we are. Nonetheless, I still think it's a really good-looking Pele. Like, even if this is second, third year, whatever it is, it's still a great Pele, but I can understand it not being the Pele like it was at one point in time. And then finally, the granddaddy of them all. See, a numbered card I don't mind talking about. An on-card auto from Select Gold 2017. I do like this quite a bit. I'm also moderately biased. I like Christian Pulisic. His rookie year was 2016. He has 2017 on-card, so, I've dabbled in this set for sure. On a Ronaldo auto, probably not easy to get 10s. His tend to streak, and he has a lot going on, so pretty impressive. That's a pop one of one, just one higher, goes for $4,500, and we actually have a couple comps, but they are the same card. So basically, one PSA 9 sold somewhat during the peak in 2021 for $12,600. So from there, it's down 60-70%. But that's just one point in time, so it's really hard to sort of gauge where it was at other points in time. I do think if this card would have sold in 2022, it probably would have went for like multiples of the 12,000. I don't know what it would have went for, but there was a time during 2022 where people were going crazy for gold, and I'm sure a gold on card Ronaldo would have went absolutely wild. However, now it's $4,500, which is much more realistic, but still obviously a very fine price and a very fine card at that. And a pretty fine auction overall, if I do say so myself. I really enjoy sort of the high end, and I feel like in general in soccer, what we're sort of seeing is there's quite a lot of people at the top and a lot of people at the bottom and sort of getting into the middle, but like the mid to high end doesn't really have a lot going on. And a lot of these auctions, we go pretty quickly from like 500 to 2,000, which I don't mind, but at the same time, I don't like talking about typically what comes in between the 500 to 2,000 range, which is a lot of these numbers that keep getting rerun. So hopefully we don't have to do any more of that, but certainly we will, because that's just the nature of the beast. Nonetheless, looking at the next week, we do have some sort of crazy ones. This is a 62 Eusebio that you don't see all too often from the Isabella Veditas set. I've never said that before. This kind of reminds me of like 40s, 50s Spain's designs. I feel like a lot of the 60s Eusebio looks much more 60s and 70s, but this seems to sort of be behind the time, which is cool in its own right. PSA 10 Messi from 2004. We have a PSA 8 Ronaldo sticker. Don't see all too often going in with the flashed auction there. Beneath it, we have an out of 5 field level Messi. That's probably going to go crazy. People love the 2017 field levels, and an out of 5 Messi is certainly going to do some numbers. Some other fun ones: a Vecchi Garrincha from 55 PSA 2, along with a Pele Aquarella. A Puskás auto. You also have another Messi rookie. Some good Paulo Rossi's. There's an 8 and a 6 in this auction as well. A really nice looking PSA 2, or an SEC 2, my bad, there, of the Maradona Estampas. Really good colors on that, which is hard to find for the most part. But yeah, ton of fun stuff. Looking forward to it, and hopefully you are too. But yeah, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like. I would appreciate it greatly. It helps the channel, helps me. If you want to see more videos like this as soon as I go live, make sure to subscribe. And with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.